Olivia didn't belong on that highway. Not at midnight, not alone. Her car had died miles from the nearest town, the road swallowed by silence and dust. Then came the headlights, 4 men, drunk, laughing, stepping out slow. Their words weren't kind. Their smiles weren't safe. The wind carried her voice, but no one answered. Just when fear became her only company, the ground began to tremble. Not from cars, from engines. Heavy, thunderous, unbroken. What happened next would remind everyone watching that sometimes the people we fear most are the ones who still remember what it means to protect. If you believe that courage still lives on open roads and that real heroes sometimes ride on 2 wheels, then take a second, like, comment, and subscribe, because tonight's story isn't about fame or fortune. It's about a girl named Olivia and how one night changed everything she thought she knew about danger and about hope. The highway stretched for miles under a moon that felt too quiet to trust. Olivia's car coughed, then died, its headlights dimming to weak yellow. She sat behind the wheel, gripping it tighter than she realized, the ticking of the hazard lights echoing like a clock counting down. No phone signal, no traffic, just the wind brushing across empty asphalt. When the second pair of headlights appeared in her rearview mirror, her heart lifted, for one single second. Help, she thought. But when the car pulled over and 4 men stepped out, laughter spilling into the night, something inside her froze. Their words slurred. Their smiles didn't reach their eyes. "Need a hand, sweetheart?" one of them said. Olivia's voice caught in her throat. I'm fine. Just waiting on someone." They circled closer, the air growing heavy with the scent of beer and gasoline. The tallest man leaned down toward her open window, his hand sliding onto the door frame. "Doesn't look like anyone's coming." His tone was playful, but the kind that made your skin crawl. She tried to start the car again. Nothing. He chuckled. "Relax. We're just being friendly." Another man walked behind the car, tapping the trunk. "Nice ride. Shame it broke down." When he looked back at her, the smile was gone. Just hunger. The world felt smaller by the second. Olivia's breathing quickened. Her fingers trembled around her phone, searching again for a signal that wasn't there. The road had swallowed every sound except for their laughter, until a low vibration rolled through the ground beneath her feet. The men paused. The sound grew, steady, rhythmic, mechanical thunder cutting through the silence. Out of the black horizon, a line of lights appeared. Not one car, but several. Then the shape of motorcycles. The laughter faded. The men turned toward the sound, squinting. Olivia didn't know whether to pray or panic. The first bike came to a stop behind her car, engine rumbling like a heartbeat amplified by chrome. A man in a black leather vest swung his leg off the seat, his boots hitting the ground with deliberate calm. The others followed, engines idling in unison. 12, maybe 15 of them, their headlights cutting sharp white lines into the night. He wasn't tall, but his presence filled the air, the kind of stillness that made even drunk men sober up. His vest bore a patch that read, "Ironhawks MC." The leader, Marcus Steele Grayson, spoke softly, but every word carried weight. "Is there a problem here?" The tallest gangster straightened, forcing a laugh. "Nah, man, just helping the lady." Steele's eyes flicked from Olivia's terrified face to the men around her. "Looks like she doesn't need your help." The others behind him didn't move, but their silence was its own warning. The man closest to Olivia sneered. "You think you scare us? You're just a bunch of—" He didn't finish. One of the bikers revved his engine just once, and every sound drowned under the roar. The road itself seemed to shake. The leader of the gang stepped back, suddenly less sure. Steele took one step closer. "Here's what's going to happen," he said quietly. "You're going to get back in your car. You're going to drive away. And you're never going to stop on this road again." For a moment, no one moved. The wind whistled through the empty fields. Then, muttering curses, the men backed away, piling into their car. Tires screeched. Taillights vanished into the black distance. Olivia sat frozen, shaking so hard her keys rattled in her hand. One of the bikers, a heavy-set man with kind eyes, walked up slowly. "You hurt, ma'am?" She shook her head, whispering, I thought they were gonna—" He nodded gently. "Not tonight." Steele crouched by her door, voice calm but firm. "You're safe now. Let's get you somewhere with light." She wanted to thank him, but her words fell apart somewhere between fear and relief. She looked up at him. The scars, the chain around his neck, the rough hands that could have hurt but didn't. For the first time that night, she saw something unexpected: decency. They escorted her car off the shoulder, 2 bikes ahead, 2 behind. The engines hummed like a promise through the dark. Olivia looked out the window as the moonlight caught the metal wings stitched onto Steele's vest. For the first time in hours, she didn't feel alone. But as they turned off the highway toward the diner lights in the distance, none of them knew. The men who had fled weren't done yet, and the night wasn't over. The diner lights flickered like old memories, soft, gold, and tired. Olivia sat in a booth by the window, her hands trembling around a cup of coffee that smelled stronger than her nerves. Across from her sat Marcus Steele Grayson, the biker who'd pulled her out of hell an hour earlier. His leather jacket creaked when he moved, his hands scarred but still. He didn't talk much. He didn't need to. The hum of the neon sign and the low murmur of his crew were enough to make the silence feel safe. The waitress poured another round of coffee, eyes darting to Olivia's bruised wrist. Steele caught the glance. "She's fine," he said quietly. The woman nodded and walked away. Olivia tried to steady her breathing, but every sound, the door chime, the hiss of the coffee pot, made her flinch. Steele leaned back in his seat, his voice low. "They won't touch you again." Olivia looked up. "You don't even know me. Why would you help?" He stared out the window where the bikes lined up like sentinels under the pale moon. "Doesn't matter who you are. Nobody deserves what was about to happen out there." One of the bikers, a stocky man with silver hair, approached the booth. "Boss," he said, voice calm but tight, "we got eyes on those guys. They didn't go far." Steele's jaw clenched. The others watched, waiting for his word. "Let them be," he said. "Not yet." Olivia frowned, confused. "Not yet?" Steele looked back at her, eyes steady. "You don't heal a wound by reopening it. You heal by protecting what's still alive." The others nodded, and for the first time that night, she saw something human in their silence. Not threat, but discipline. They weren't loud. They weren't reckless. They were men who'd seen enough pain to know when to stop, but outside, the night hadn't forgotten. The faint roar of an engine rolled past the diner. One of the bikers at the window tensed. "Same car," he muttered. The laughter that followed was distant, but unmistakable. The gangsters had returned, circling the parking lot like vultures testing their courage. Olivia's cup rattled in its saucer. Steele rose slowly. No rush, no fear. He motioned for his men to stay put. "Doc," he said, nodding toward Olivia. "Keep her inside." Then he pushed through the diner door and stepped into the night. The neon glow hit his jacket, the word Ironhawks glinting across his back. The gang's car idled across the lot, its headlights slicing through the dust. The leader leaned out the window, grinning. "Didn't think we'd let you have her that easy." Steele's boots crunched on gravel as he walked forward. "You made a mistake once tonight," he said. "Don't make it again." The man laughed. "You think you own the road?" Steele stopped 5 feet from the car. "No," he said, "but I protect what rides on it." The car revved, lurching forward an inch, a challenge. The bikers inside the diner stood instantly, hands twitching, waiting for Steele's signal. Through the window, Olivia saw the tension, the quiet energy that felt heavier than any fight. She couldn't breathe. Then, silence. Steele reached up and unclipped the chain from his neck, letting it drop into his palm. The car headlights glinted off it. A dog tag, a name, a number. The man's smirk faded. "You were military?" Steele didn't answer. He just turned the tag over once in his hand, then slipped it back on. The car's engine faltered, fear creeping in where arrogance once lived. The gangsters backed away, their laughter gone. When they sped off, the only sound left was the low hum of motorcycles. Inside, Olivia's hands were still shaking. She watched through the window as Steele stood under the diner's neon glow, the reflection of red and blue lights painting his face like a ghost from another life. When he walked back inside, no one spoke. He sat down, eyes distant. Olivia whispered, "They'll come back." Steele's reply was calm. "Then we'll still be here." He didn't look like a hero, not the kind you find in books. But in that moment, under the flicker of that diner light, Olivia understood why people followed him. It wasn't fear, it was faith. She didn't know that across town, in a dark motel parking lot, the gangsters had stopped, angry, humiliated, planning revenge. The night was far from over. Morning came late to that stretch of highway. The sun rose weakly through a haze of dust, painting the diner windows in dull amber. Olivia hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw headlights and laughter, the kind that made her stomach twist. She sat in the same booth, the same coffee cup in her hands, though the coffee had long gone cold. Steele and his crew were outside, working on one of the bikes. The rumble of engines and the smell of oil filled the air. Steady, rhythmic grounding. It was strange how safe those sounds felt now. They weren't noise anymore. They were reassurance. Doc stepped inside, wiping his hands on a rag. "You should eat something," he said. "You'll feel better." Olivia managed a small smile. "I don't think I'll ever feel normal again." Doc shrugged softly. "Normal's overrated." Outside, Steele was checking the gas tanks when one of the younger riders, Hawk, jogged over, his face pale. "Boss," he said quietly, "I followed the tracks from last night. Those guys didn't leave town. They're camped about 10 miles east, near the old mill." Steele's jaw flexed once, slow and deliberate. He didn't say a word, just turned to look at the road, long and empty, stretching toward the horizon. Then finally he said, "Get the bikes ready." The others nodded without question. The atmosphere shifted, calm, purposeful, heavy. The air itself seemed to hum. Olivia watched through the window as the men geared up. The sound of metal buckles and boots against gravel echoed like thunder rolling in. She stepped outside, her heart pounding. "You're going after them, aren't you?" Steele met her eyes. "They'll hurt someone else if we don't." "Then let the police handle it," she said desperately. He shook his head. "By the time they do, it'll be too late." There was no bravado in his tone, just truth, carved deep by experience, the kind that doesn't need to convince anyone. As the Iron Hawks lined up their bikes, Olivia stood by the diner steps, torn between fear and gratitude. She wanted to stop them. She wanted to thank them. But she couldn't find the right words for either. Steele swung onto his Harley, the morning light catching the silver streak in his beard. He gave her a short nod. "Lock the door. Stay inside until we're back." Then the engines roared to life, one by one, 12 heartbeats turning into one. Dust rose in a spiral behind them as they tore down the road toward the old mill. Olivia watched until the horizon swallowed them whole. Inside the diner, time moved slowly. Every tick of the wall clock sounded like a warning. She tried to distract herself, cleaned the table, refilled coffee, stared at the parking lot until the light changed color. But the worry gnawed at her, louder with every passing minute. Then she heard it, the faint echo of engines in the distance. But this time, it wasn't the Hawks. It was higher-pitched, frantic, fast. Tires screeched outside. Olivia froze as a black sedan skidded to a stop in front of the diner, the door flung open. One of the gangsters from last night stumbled out, limping, face bloodied. He looked terrified. "They're coming!" he shouted, breath ragged. "You don't understand, they're—" The sound hit before the words finished, a deep, thunderous rumble. Olivia looked past him toward the road. There they were. The Iron Hawks riding in formation, sunlight flashing off their helmets like fire. They weren't chasing, they were returning. The gangster fell to his knees, hands shaking, whispering, "You can't stop them." But Olivia wasn't afraid this time. She stepped to the window, watching the convoy draw closer, every bike moving with perfect unity. The Hawks slowed to a crawl as they entered the diner lot, the lead bike stopping inches from the man on the ground. Steele killed the engine and dismounted. His eyes were cold, not cruel, but final. Olivia couldn't hear what he said to the man. The world had gone quiet again, the kind of silence that waits right before the storm breaks. And then, as the wind lifted the dust and the engines idled low, Steele turned, meeting Olivia's gaze through the diner window, and gave her a small, solemn nod. Something was about to end. Something else was about to begin. The silence after the engines died felt heavier than the noise that came before it. Dust settled slowly across the diner parking lot, floating like ghosts in the orange light. Steele stood beside his bike, shoulders squared, eyes locked on the road they had just come from. The others lingered nearby, tired, grim, but unbroken. Olivia pushed the diner door open, the bell chiming softly as she stepped out. Her heartbeat hadn't caught up with her yet. They were back, all of them. She searched their faces, looking for blood, bruises, anything that hinted at what happened at the mill. But there was only silence, the kind that carries meaning too heavy for words. She stopped in front of Steele. "Is it over?" He looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, it's over." The way he said it, low, steady, final, told her everything she needed to know. One of the bikers, Hawk, wiped sweat and dust from his brow, muttering, "They won't hurt anyone again." Steele didn't answer. He didn't have to. Justice in his world didn't need to be written down. It was carried out quietly and left behind on the road. They stayed there for a while, no one speaking, the hum of cooling engines filling the silence. Olivia's eyes burned, though she didn't know if it was from tears or dust. When Steele finally moved, it wasn't with triumph. It was with exhaustion. He walked past her, back toward the diner, like a man who'd seen too much of the world and expected nothing in return. Inside, the light felt softer now. The waitress, still shaken, brought out a plate of food that no one had ordered. Olivia sat opposite Steele again, across the same booth from the night before. His hands were still rough, still scarred, but now there was something else in them, a calm she hadn't noticed before. She whispered, "Why did you help me?" Steele stared down at the cup of coffee in front of him, his reflection rippling with each small vibration of the table. "Because someone once didn't help my sister," he said quietly. "I made sure I'd never let that happen again." Olivia's eyes softened, and for a moment the noise of the diner faded. She could see the man behind the scars, a soldier who traded one war for another. She wanted to say thank you, but the words felt too small for what he'd done. Outside, the sun was slipping beneath the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of red and gold. Steele stood up, slipping his chain back around his neck, the dog tag catching a sliver of light. "We're heading out," he said. "You've got a place to go?" She hesitated. "Not really." He reached into his vest and handed her a card. It had the logo of a women's shelter in Austin, with a handwritten note beneath it. "Tell them Steele sent you." Her throat tightened. "I don't deserve this kind of kindness." Steele gave a small smile. "Nobody does. That's why it's worth giving." The hawks began mounting up again, one by one. Engines came alive. Not like thunder this time, but like a heartbeat easing back into rhythm. Olivia stepped outside with them, wind brushing her hair as the night deepened. She watched as Steele pulled his helmet on, then paused, looking back at her. "The road's got rules," he said. "We ride by one of them. Protect those who can't." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Then I'll never forget the code." He smiled faintly. "That's all I ask." They rode off into the night, tail lights fading into the dark until all that remained was the hum of memory. Olivia stood there long after the sound disappeared, holding the card tight in her fist. Somewhere deep inside, something began to mend. Quietly, slowly, like a scar fading into strength. Weeks later, in Austin, Olivia would hang that same card on a bulletin board at the shelter she worked for. Her article, "The Night the Road Fought Back," would go viral, reaching thousands of women who thought hope was gone. And every time someone asked what saved her that night, she'd smile and say, "A group of men the world misunderstood." But for now, she stood under the diner's flickering light, whispering to the empty highway, "Thank you. If this story moved you, please don't just watch and scroll. Subscribe to the Bike Code, share this video, and let someone else feel what you just did. Because kindness like this doesn't spread by accident. It spreads because you do something." And when you're ready, watch the next video on your screen. Another story of redemption, brotherhood, and the road that reminds us. Not all heroes wear badges. Some ride in silence,